All right, it's 5. Let's stand for the pledge. All right, welcome to our meeting tonight on January 21st, 2020. You have an open forum first. Is anyone wanting to address the board? Seeing no one running up here, we'll move on to the public hearing regarding the tax abatement for new home construction. Is that Mike? Do you have anything on that, or?
Yeah, you're going to be later on in the agenda abating the taxes of Gary and Sandra Thompson, and as part of the process, we have a hearing for this, and so if anybody here would like to speak to that, that's what this time is for.
Anybody, any comments? Okay. All right, then we will move on to number 5, the approval of today's agenda. Look, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Too cold. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of today's agenda signify by saying aye. 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 Pose the same. Motion carried. Consent items. One motion would be needed on those if.
I'd like to request 6.2 be pulled for later, please.
6.2, I'm sorry, Joe, what was it?
Correct. To be pulled out of the consent.
Okay. 6.2, so then we would add that on to. Okay, so that we just make that about a 6.9, is that right? 6.8 through, is that how we do that? Pull that up. Or 7. 7.1
or 7.05 if you want.
Okay, we'll make that 701. Okay, 6.2. Anything else? Move to move. We got a motion. Any second? Got a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose the same. Okay. All right, so then we will do 7.1 before we get to the reports. So we'll do the minutes of the school board workshops, meetings, and miscellaneous committees.
I just had a correction to the December 16th minutes.
Okay. All righty.
It's just during the closed session. The first closed session, and then coming out of it, I would have been absent then because I was remote. So if we could just add Maureen absent to that piece, and then I imagine it would be a 5-0 coming out of that closed session.
Okay, good. That's good. And a 5-0. Okay. Any other discussion at all? We'd vote on that then, right? Okay. I need a motion to approve the change of that 12-16 closed session meeting to where Jill was absent, and the vote then would have been 5-0.
We have 2 gone that night?
Neil also, yep. Yep.
Yeah, should that be mentioned too?
I think that's listed right at the beginning.
Yeah, he
Right at
wasn't
the
there,
beginning.
yeah.
So he was absent the whole meeting. I wasn't able to participate in those 2 pieces.
Okay, yep.
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Ken makes a motion to approve as amended. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we got a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed the same. Okay, motion carries. Thank you for seeing that. Reports. 7.1, Dr. Funk.
We are a few weeks away from the legislative session for this upcoming biennium, or this last half of the biennium. And just a couple thoughts on what I'm hearing as far as what they're going to be discussing within the realm of education. This is a non-funding year for education, so really what that means for us is very unlikely, even though we have a significant surplus, it's very unlikely they'll make any adjustments to the formula, to the general ed formula. They may make some other adjustments, but it's very unlikely that that will occur. They do have a few priorities, both the Republicans and the Democrats. Both are talking quite a bit about mental health and how we can address some of the issues with mental health. One of the areas they're looking at is, the expansion of full-service schools. And we don't have a full-service school in our district, but this would be adding social services and really more of an extended day program for families and students for not only during the school day, but for after school as well. They seem to have piloted that in some areas throughout the state, and there seems to have been some success with that. So that is a point that they're talking about. There's still an emphasis, continues to be an emphasis on early childhood education. I think we're in pretty good shape as a school district regarding that, but they still are focusing on that at the state level. And with that, something a little bit different, they're talking about pre-screening assessments that would be maybe mandatory or universal for kindergarten statewide. Districts use different assessments right now as far as determining kindergarten readiness, and so maybe there'd be some uniformity as far as determining what readiness for kindergarten looks like. Something that is near and dear to our heart here as we continue to evolve as a school district is ELL funding. Last year, I think they spent a lot of effort, and there was some dollars flowed through with it on special ed funding. This year, they're talking more English language learner funding, which really helps us addressing the needs of our refugee community who comes to Albert Lea. The other couple other things that are statewide issues, teacher retention still remains a statewide issue, and I think that'll be a policy discussion. I don't know what will evolve out of that, but the legislature is very aware that teacher retention is an issue. And then the other piece is career and tech education. And again, how do we continue to improve pathways statewide for our students who aren't going on to college? So that's what their focus is going to be in the area of education this spring, and I will continue to update the board as we move forward here. Subject to your questions. Dennis.
If you have need, March 2nd, I will be at the state legislature for advocacy days for us, but if there's anything you want to pass along, I'll be able to do that. And then I fly out the next day to D.C. For advocacy days out there, so I'd be happy to take any information or data that you might have along with me.
I'm glad you mentioned the DC part of that too. I'm one of 3 superintendents that has been invited by the Minnesota Association of School Administrators to go out to DC at the end of February here to advocate for school issues on a statewide basis for the state of Minnesota. So I'll have that opportunity towards the end of February.
When you mentioned the full service and the study that was kind of done, which schools were they? Are they larger, smaller?
They're typically larger schools that are in pretty diverse districts. Brooklyn Center or Brooklyn Park's been doing it for a number of years. They've had some success. Rochester John Marshall has a full-service high school. And so this seems to be more of an expansion of meeting kids' and families' needs at the school, not only during the school day, but really into the evening and after school as well.
You mentioned mental health. Does the full service include positions like school psychologists and so on?
Yes.
Is that a possibility here?
We would have to see what, where the funding comes with it, because there is more funding when you go to that model and what that looks like, and how to even get approved for that. Something I have to look into.
Good. All right, school board member reports, and also, why don't you go ahead if you want to add in a couple thoughts in your MSBA meetings at this time. We'll just kind of clump them together. Never know which way to start, but Kim, you smile bigger than Dennis, so I'm going to start your way. Actually, Aaron's smiling the most, but you weren't there. There was a session on student members, so we missed it, but thanks. Okay. Kim.
Okay. I actually had the opportunity to attend the Phase 4 training on the Wednesday before the conference, and it was really around engagement and policy. And so Mike attended with me, and so he gave some information, I think, already to Kathy about the policy pieces, making sure that we had the ones that we were supposed to have, and and we are one of few schools I found out that actually have a schedule for policy review, so in the room anyway. And then the second part is engagement, and it was kind of a fun opportunity. So they actually split us into what we would be in a public forum, and so I think that would be something I'm going to share my notes with Chair Klott, and just maybe that's something that we can lead as a school board. Do it internally first, and then maybe push it out to the community, and it's really all geared towards this idea that getting back to all learning counts, and what are we hearing from our communities. So that was a great session. I would highly recommend, if you have an opportunity to attend Phase 4, to do that. It just has another thing to add to what we do. The second part, the second one I wanted to report on, because I don't think anybody else was able to or would attend, because I'm the Minnesota State High School League rep for our board, and so I attended that session, and they're really looking at developing purpose and value statements, redoing those for the league, and doing it in 3 phases. And the first phase actually has an opportunity for the schools to engage in that, and so they have a session in February that's for an educational leader, and that can be defined however the school wants to do that, or the district. Then they have athletic admin in April that will get together, and then there'll be a school implementation team. But those, there's 3 phases, like I said, and they're looking at strategic direction about why we play, and the inside-out kind of mentality. So there'll be lots more to come, and I'm sure that Paul's been, started to connect with that. So very informative. They did say that the league continues to lose money, and so we might see an increase. They don't know what that would look like, but yeah, those were my sessions, and I was not able to attend the Teacher of the Year committee meeting, the last one we had. I think we have one coming up on Thursday, and I'm not going to be able to attend that. So that's my report.
I attended the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drug Prevention Committee meeting. We discussed some grant opportunities, and a foundation grant has been applied for, and an interview was forthcoming in this month. We received updates on different school groups that are active, and also went over some of the Minnesota student survey results and trends. We also had an interesting discussion about telephones or phones in the classroom, and about the digital hall pass, which I think is proving to be helpful in monitoring what activity goes on in the school outside of the classroom. So, and then as far as the conference, I attended the workshop on vaping. Lots of good information there was put on by the Duluth district in part. Vaping is a national epidemic. Teens can be addicted in 1 to 2 weeks of use. Lots of interesting, they went over the devices. There are some new devices that resemble inhalers, There's a clothing line that specializes in stealth vaping attributes, watches. The new vaping products even have low vapor, low smoke to be seen, and then the scent as well, which they're becoming harder to track. They did have some interesting ideas as far as policy goes. When this was all newly coming up, very little information was out about vaping. They decided to go to a first offender option of either serving out the suspension or whatever they had, or doing some research and writing a paper on it. And so they actually found that to be very educational for a lot of the students. Of course, the second offense, if happened, would have to follow the suspension protocols that were in place. But they also have put in some different suspension serving placements so that kids aren't kicked out of school to go home and use more, but they serve more in school where they are at least safer from the chemical use and able to hopefully continue their education, because a lot of education is lost during suspensions. They also found peer-to-peer education helpful, and they, with some grant funding, they put together a really nice video that the students did with a neighboring district as well. And they find that peers really respond more to another peer talking to them than some older adult telling them what's best. And so I have those links if anybody's interested. The other workshop I went to was concerning the Minnesota Student Survey. And they talked about the full-service schools, the whole child consideration, mental health issues, as well as sexual issues and using issues, all of those kind of things. And I believe we will be hearing some of our local results here as a district in the coming time. Thank you.
Put the mental health one on.
The,
I don't have,
yeah,
I just was wondering if they.
it's actually was a combination of the Department of Health, and then it is, I have it here, I wonder if they say, it's like, yeah, I can get that to you. I do, it's, I believe one of the metro areas, but I'll get that to you. Thank you.
My report will be brief. Committee actions since December's holidays. There wasn't a whole lot going on there. Nothing from the foundation. I'm no longer a member of, since Dennis is covering that one, the Business Ed Committee. Negotiations, Jen can probably help me out here. We of the groups that I'm working with, the teachers are the only ones left. We're making very good progress there. We have a mediation session. I haven't received. I believe it's February 10th. February 10th? Okay, I think I have received information about that, but I just forgot. February 10th, so we have a mediation session scheduled, and I'm optimistic that we will have one mediation session and we'll be done. There are a few language items left, which are, I think we've agreed to deal with those separate from the mediation process, and I think that we will resolve what few remaining language items are left without too much trouble. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that we're very close. And I might also comment that all of the experiences that I've had with the four groups have been very amicable and collaborative, not adversarial at all. And it has been, from my side of the table, I'm familiar with the other side of the table, been the way it should be, a model of the way it should be. So I'm very, very pleased with that. I said I'd be brief, but I lied. This morning, it was my happiness to be surprise, surprise. It was my happiness to be a part of the Pathways to Success program, and I got to appear with another gentleman in front of an 8th grade class and give them a benefit of my experiences as an educator and as a farmer. I'm not so sure I qualify for either. But it's always fun to get back in front of a class and work with students. And I was impressed with the quality of the kids in that 8th grade class. They were polite, attentive. The instructor did a very fine, had things very well organized. So that's kind of a neat program, and gives me an opportunity to pontificate ad nauseum. As far as the conference is concerned, it was cut short because of the weather, and I attended 2 sessions, one on disciplinary action against employees, and I'm not going to get great detail. It was a pretty well-defined process, which we have on occasion followed quite well, so it was really nothing new. The one thing that occurred to me, or the one reaction I had to that whole session, in fact, I raised a question. I was a little concerned about the rights of the employee in this process and how an employee who is, and this is reflected in national politics on every side, once you're accused of something, that's a fairly severe indictment in itself, and I think that employers need to be careful about that and be careful of someone's reputation. But that was just my personal response to it. And the other, that was a good session. The other session was one that I signed up for because we're involved in high reliability schools here in Albert Lea, and that was part of the title of this session, but I discovered to my chagrin that this session had nothing to do with high reliability schools, and so in fact I was somewhat disappointed with that session. Once again, I've said this many times, I think one of the greatest benefits we get from going to these conferences is the collegiality with not only our own board members, but board members and administrators from around the state and the staff of the MSBA. It's fun to go there. It's like a kid in a candy shop walking around the auditorium there and the display center, and it's like the county fair, avoiding contact with the people in the booth so you don't have to stop and visit with them. But still, it's intriguing to see all the stuff that's out there. I went there with a purpose in that regard because we have in the high school several opportunities for displays, various halls of fame, and distinguished alumni and distinguished educator and plaques. And it occurred to me that it would be really neat to have a kiosk, you know, one of those interactive displays where you can touch the screen and filter and sort. But I was disappointed that there weren't any exhibits that presented any of those materials. So maybe next year.
Your
That's
invention.
What's that?
You might invent it.
I could do that. Thank you.
Yes.
Could I have that answer for you? For the Whole Child Framework, it's Brooklyn Center in Eden Prairie. They worked with a CDC grant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of comments on the conference. I attended the roundtable on the school board self-evaluation, which MSBA does for school districts across the state, and so I received some information on that. Also went to Meeting Your Community's Call for Increased School Safety, and it was put on by the Duluth School District. And they also had implemented ALICE training. I think we might even be a little bit ahead of them the way they described it, because they're not going to be fully implemented until another year or two. And I was curious to see what was there, and they talked about ALICE training, and one of the ones that was the most interesting is teacher turnover, why it matters and what can we do about it. And some statistics that I just thought I would share. Nationally, there's an 8% attrition rate on teachers that just decide that they're going to get out of it. And there's a 10% turnover rate on top of that, which is retirement and other jobs. So it looks like about a 24% turnover rate on an annualized basis. And then they said that approximately year one of a teacher that goes into the profession, 15.1% just leave after year one. After year three, it's up to 25.9%. And after year 5, it's 31.9%. And they gave several reasons. I thought I'd just share those quick. Number one was stress. Number 2 was burnout. 3 was low job satisfaction. It's the lowest in 20 years. Feeling less support, and then background characteristics. So, bottom line is what can you do about it? And they came back to that support piece, and the support was just leaders in the school district, including school boards, superintendents, and principals having more contact and showing support. It's not like that you had to do anything special. It was just be there to show support to them, and that was the take-home message from that. So. Then I also wanted to mention I do need to leave here early tonight. I do have another meeting. We're making a pretty important decision on something, so I hate to say, but I'm going to be leaving here fairly quickly. So, thank you.
All right, so everyone laughs and looks at me and points. When we talk about the vendors, everyone else avoids them. I'm all like, oh, free stuff for my program store for my students. So anyway, I did get a nugget from talking to the vendors. There was an electric bus there, or they were talking about electric buses, and the gentleman that I talked to said, though, he is not a proponent for electric buses in Minnesota because they also have to use propane to heat them then. That was very interesting. I didn't know that. So anyway, I did get a nugget from the vendors, and I attended agricultural education funding opportunities, so we are utilizing most or all of those anyway, but I will pass that along. And as a round table, and then leading through school community conflict. And I ended up going to pretty much all the sessions except for the ag one. Were all kind of legal ones. I did kind of accidentally just jumped into a bunch of legal ones. So this one, of course, there was a law firm and a superintendent from a school district. Anyway, it was just some good tips and stuff, and it kind of just brought home that there's a lot of stuff that we're doing pretty good, really good actually. They talked about even community members talking to school board members and just how to handle that and things like that. So like, oh, you can listen and then make sure you bring it to admin's attention and things like that. And that doesn't always happen everywhere, so it sounds like we're doing a pretty good job. And then I went to one, it was called, the name was a little bit wonky, it didn't really give a clear description, but Me Too in Schools, Emerging Title IX Discrimination Issues. And the Title IX actually was what it was all about. And apparently they're just revamping, and the changes to Title IX are imminent. So the lady who presented was under the impression that these changes would have happened by the time she presented, and they had not happened yet. I mean, they have it as it is now, but she doesn't know if things are going to get reconciled or changed any further. A lot of the people in attendance had much issue with a lot of these changes, as well as, I guess, MSBA has, with some of the proposed changes had showed that they weren't in support of all these changes either, especially with, I guess, sexual harassment complaints. It changed things tremendously, and I think the woman presenting, very, very intelligent woman, she was explaining, she thinks that a lot of these changes were kind of geared towards college, so they don't fit well in a public school, K-12 school. It's just a little bit wonky, so pretty soon, and this is going to get done, and we'll get some model language from MSBA, and we'll have to be talking about that in our policy committee. And then the other one I went to happened to be all legal too, very eye-opening. Off-campus conduct and on-campus effects for employees and students. And that was just really just interesting how, you know, if it's something that happens off campus, some of that's like cyberbullying with students and just different things. But then they talked about legal cases and the outcomes, which just some of that just kind of surprised me. And then our John Keone spoke, and that was, I think we all think that was amazing. And I think that's about it. I did, besides MSBA stuff, I did attend Hawthorne PTO. Dave was my sidekick there. I love going to the PTO meetings. I would like to, you know, expand that and maybe go to some more. I know we don't all need more meetings, but those are fun. You know, parent teachers getting together and planning things and trying to just do things that benefit students. It's awesome. And then I also attended the Teacher of the Year committee meeting, and I sent you guys all an email, all the board members. The Teacher of the Year tea is February 19th at 4 p.m., and the Teacher of the Year reception is April 1st at 4 p.m., both in the high school commons. And I sent you an email on that, so I know jotting it down and then finding your notes later is a little tough sometimes.
I was unable to attend the conference. I had the choice of either missing today or missing the conference, so I chose to be here today instead. So I apologize that I couldn't get up there. Sounds like there's a lot of good things there. As far as meetings go, we had the Business Education Committee, a lot of discussion on the technical training again, and then also developing the website, still some work there. It was a thinner turnout because it was switched to Tuesday versus the normal meeting. And then the worksite wellness, I just wanted to put a shout out to the school district. Bria has just been doing a fantastic job representing and doing a lot of good input and information to what the district is doing. And we went through a lot of things there. We had a health fair at the senior center, and a lot of good information there for different groups to go to. But I know this time of year right now, it sounds like the school district's doing a lot of steps and walking and different things. And it sounds like there's a committee member from every school, which is part of that grant and funding piece. But it's been fun to see that. From the business ed side of it, again, they're looking at one of the big things for all the businesses, because of the age of the population, is succession planning. So they're hoping to do some seminars on that coming up, and then focusing again on more education going towards the trades versus college education. Noon Kiwanis has been doing the BUGS program, and they have visited all the schools midterms so far to check up. It's just fun to see and hear about the kids and the goals that they're setting. We have one left on January 29th at Lakeview in the morning. We'll finish that one, and then we'll go again in the spring for that. Youth in government, we had 15 students from Albert Lee area. Kudos to our busing staff. We ended up with a flat tire up in the cities. We had Chris Ellaby. We're lucky we have him. Just worked really well with the kids, and they weren't happy to have to stay in the hotel for a few hours, but all worked out well. Good experience. 2 8th graders this year. It was fun because they both ended up speaking a lot. It's always hard to get the 8th graders to talk. One always does, but that's okay. A good thing, and just looking to grow those numbers again next year. Kind of interesting as we look across the state at other areas. Albert Lee has done a great job of allowing students that experience, not counting it as an absence, having it been approved, and I think the education that they learn from it is phenomenal. So we appreciate that.
Thanks, Dennis. Just a couple things outside of the MSBA. Enjoyed the Hawthorne PTO with Angie. It's fun to meet again with the teachers and and, well, some administrators there, and then also went the next night to Lakeview. And, just to see the dynamics even between the two different elementary schools, and, that was fun. The real ground roots fundraising, if you want to call it that, we're used to, kids knocking at your door selling pizzas. Well, this is where it comes and starts at, and, it was a lot of fun, and just to watch again, even the changing of the ideas, the changing of the chairs there. A few meetings I went to up at the MSBA, went to the board chair question and answer session. I'd done that the year before, and it's always kind of a good reminder and just some things to think about ahead of time in the year. Superintendent relations, we had a session up there where the Superintendent Association and the MSBA got together, and it was kind of a joint session and able to bounce ideas and really show how well they work together, which kind of related back to the relations part too, on how to work together in a school district for the best communication to the public. And so it's fun to see those, and they have a retiring superintendent executive. So the new one wasn't there, but talked about some transition. The other one I went to was a school board self-evaluation session. I think it's something that I was pretty interested in us taking a look at, kind of two different phases. One phase is a one-page, 15-minute, for lack of a better term, Survey Monkey, but it does give you some nice breakdowns. That's a free evaluation to the district. And then if you wanted to go further in a year or two later, there's another one where you can actually get sessions from the MSBA staff that come down and give you a 27-page report. And, sometimes it seems like you can get a lot of information out of a few questions. But anyway, I want to take a look at that and see how that works. One other thing we talked about up there, and I'm going to make it brief and pass it around, Kim had brought it to our attention. We visited a little bit about some potential school board apparel. And I just want to pass it on. I'm doing no more than open it up. We will discuss it sometime, but as an idea, and as we saw a lot of school districts up there wore something alike so they could be identified, and I think it's a great unity type of a thing. I've just got, it doesn't matter what color, well, it does kind of matter the color sometime, but the style, the whatever it is, but this I just got today. I just wanted to pass it around. You guys look at it, and we'll get to a session. It's your size, Neil. I got your size as a large, so I just brought a soft-sided vest, kind of something that we would, again, discuss maybe our logo right here on there. I mean, we could put our name on there. Just something to identify. I don't think we'll probably do like the rodeo team, which we don't have, and have stickers all over and anything like that, but I think maybe something to say, there's the Albert Lee School Board. So just pass around, pass it back. Nothing other than I just want you to take a look at it. And
This is what I need, another apparel in my closet.
that's what I've heard at home too, Neil. That's why there's not sleeves.
50 years of wrestling shirts.
Okay, Ann, teacher report. Dara Jerzak.
All right.
Thank you. Aaron, sorry, buddy. We're right back at you.
No problem. Yeah, so I have to leave, unfortunately, right after my report here, so I will keep it brief. In general, not much has happened at the high school so far this year. It's been a pretty uneventful year, so I want to start off by saying that congratulations on being elected chair, congratulations on being elected clerk, and congratulations on being re-elected treasurer. As for youth and government, I had a lot of students talk to me about that, and they said they had a great time, and they're definitely looking forward to doing it again next year. As for what Jill said, clothes, watches, inhalers, that's very interesting. I, as a student, was not aware of that. So, yeah, that's something people should hear a lot more about, because I think that's fairly new, isn't it? Yeah, and then as to what Dr. Funk was talking about, the 2020 legislative priorities, I'm really glad that we're hearing more about opportunities for people who don't want to go to college, who want to do those secondary programs. I'm glad that we're going to be expanding on that. And I think that that is all that I had. So thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay. 8, safe and healthy schools. We don't have anything under there, so let's go to curriculum and instruction. 9-1, the Alberta High School choir trip proposal for June of 2021. Diane Haney.
The magnitude of this trip and because of who's taking it, I thought we would invite Diane to come and speak to the board. Well, the past few years, we've just put them on the consent agenda, but I think she's got some great information here for you, so that's why we put her on the agenda. So, Diane.
So about every other year, we go on a choir trip, swap it with band the next year. We went on a European trip in 2001, 2011, here we are in 21. So, and I will not be doing another European trip if this goes. This will be the last. Pretty sure I won't be around another 10 years. But I think it's a pretty exciting opportunity. I have a really close friend who teaches music in Vienna, that we were grad school buddies. And so I'll have a little in a school system in Vienna, and she teaches at middle level school. So that'll be fun. I anticipate we'll get together and have my choir sing there. There's a proposed agenda, and we're gonna go after school's out. Probably looking about June 3rd, after the calendar got passed. I looked at it, and we have to come back after commencement next year, so those 3 days, and then I thought, well, there's spring sports and that kind of thing, so to give more of those guys and gals a chance to finish up their sporting season, looking at leaving in June 3rd, and that means it's back on the 14th of June. And I really think you have to go at least 10 days with a travel day on the end to make it worthwhile. 20 for 5 days is crazy. It's the same amount of transportation costs. So I'm working with my former trip planner, which I've worked with for years and years and years, and she's sort of a semi-retired, but she said she would do a trip for me, and she does the cheapest trips and the best trips. No one can beat her price. So the price is tentatively $3,500 for 12 days in Germany and Austria, and it includes most of the meals and all the admissions and all the transportation. So I would open it up to any kid in choir, 9 through 12. Last time we took 9th graders, I said, you should probably have an adult with you, or your mom and my friends could go, and so there's a little less, there's a little more supervision on the 9th graders, and that worked much better. And then also, because then those kids would be in different choirs, then that time after school's out gives us a chance to actually rehearse the tour choir and do the music there. So we'll do it a little bit in school, but it'll pretty much be outside of doors. Don't know how this will go. I've already had some parents lobbying for chaperone spots, and they're alumni parents. So these are people who went themselves in some of my trips and say, I want to go get. I don't know. The last couple years we've gone on trips. I could only get 40 kids to go, but it was over spring break. And I think that's the big difference. When we went to Hawaii, what was that, 6 years ago or so, was a more expensive trip. I had 80, 90 people go. So I don't know how this will go. I haven't
Would there, and to really, 40 kids or 60 people total, or
I
to,
want to fill up a bus.
'kay.
So, and that's about 55 people. And I want a viable choir. I don't want to just go and sightsee. There are people who do that with music groups. They just take their kids and they never perform. And I'm like, no. So, it really depends. If it doesn't go, I'll come back and ask about a different trip. But, so, I'd really like to try this. I think so.
Good.
Financial assistance for the students, or I'm guessing there'll be a lot of fundraising, or
Yep.
how were you able to manage that before? Are there funds available that they can seek out?
Yeah, there are. And people are throwing money at me. Seriously. And I go, oh, really? Do you need help with the trip? Yes. And they send me checks. I mean, the last time we went to San Antonio, I think I paid full price for about 10 kids, just based on the amount of money that I had. I mean, this is a lot more expensive. So yeah, we'll have fundraisers and it's going to be, my husband thinks I'm insane for trying this again, but I think it'll be fun.
You going to teach a little German ahead of time? Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
We're all singing German now.
That's good. Well, I would, any other questions?
Action item?
It is an action item, so I would look for a motion.
So move.
So move to accept this by Neil. Is there a second? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Good luck and thank you. Okay, 10.1, effective and efficient operations. Steve Anderson, the re-roofing of Southwest Middle School.
All right, thank you. Our big project this year is 2/3 of the roof at Southwest, the middle area where the office is, and then the gym is what we bid out. Went to bid back in December 19th. The bids came in a little higher than what we expected or what we had budgeted. So we did some value engineering with the low bidder, which was Schwickert's. And we got about $100,000 of value engineering brought down, which is basically reusing materials. We did more core drills, and we're going to reuse some more insulation and some other border material that we can reuse. It won't affect the quality of the job, but will save us $100,000 and get us on budget anyway, within our budget. So I guess at this point, unless there's questions, anything?
When we look at these, are you looking at the bottom, the base plus the alternative one?
Nope, I'm looking the base bid total.
Okay.
It is up on the fourth line or whatever. The one on the bottom would be, because I wanted to throw it out there, if we just did the middle roof, the office part of Southwest, that would be that price. That's by far the worst roof we have in the district. We wanted to make sure we get that done, and if our numbers were way too high, we would just backed off to that, doing one part of it. But I think with the value engineering, we can do both parts.
Any other questions for Steve? This is an action item, so I would look for a motion to approve. I got a motion to approve by Kim. Any second?
Second.
Dennis? There. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose the same. Thank you, Steve. Policy 713, student activity accounting, Jennifer.
sorry. I usually talk plenty loud, but Governmental Accounting Services Board. And what it is now requiring us is that all student activity funds fall under board control. And so that resolution was passed last June because it had to go into effect in July. And now they have updated our policy for student activity accounts, really to reflect that resolution and the fact that, so we really will no longer have Fund 48 accounts. Those were the student activity accounts outside of board control. In fact, we are just now going through the process of converting all the Fund 48 accounts to Fund 21 accounts. And Fund 21 is just an accounting thing that we do in the district to help us track it more easily, but Fund 21 really is Fund 1. It crosswalks to Fund 1 when we report to the state. So when the state looks at our financials, they see Fund 1, they don't see Fund 21. We are also in the process of looking at our Fund 21 accounts to see which really meet the criteria of a student activity account. I think we have some that don't. And it doesn't mean we can't still do the activity, but we just have to account for it in Fund 1 and not Fund 21. So we're going through that process and the process of accounting for the Fund 21. It will now be a restricted account, just like operating capital or long-term facilities maintenance funds. So a restricted account within Fund 1. And it will be the curricular, co-curricular, and all extracurricular student activity accounts.
Yeah, any
I don't think
questions?
this is an action item, is it?
Yeah, we will.
Oh, it isn't.
And are all of these changes then, they're mandated by law and we have no
Yes.
control? That's why we're having an action on the first reading tonight?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
this is all mandated, correct.
And it's an update to an existing policy, it's not a new one.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Pass, 6-0, thank you. Okay, and another action item here, a resolution establishing the combined polling places for certain multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election for 2020. Dr. Funk.
So I just had you approve this last month, and then we heard back from the county that they made an adjustment after you approved it. So the combined polling place used to be the A to Z Church. That's what it was last month when you approved it. Now it's next door at the First Lutheran Church. So they moved it back to First Lutheran, so it's across really the driveway is the new polling place, but we need you to approve that change.
Any questions or discussion? If not, I look for a motion to approve the change back. Kim moves to approve. Any seconds? Second. Angie, any other discussion? If not, all those signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. And finally, 10.4, resolution of property tax abatement. Dr. Funk.
This is the abatement for Gary and Sandra Thompson. You can see their new construction address. And this is, I believe, is an abatement for 5 years, which is consistent with the county and the city. So I recommend you abate.
Okay, any discussion on that? If not, it's an action item, so I look for a motion to approve. So moved. Any seconds? Second. Second by Dennis. Any other discussion? If not, look for a vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, the same. Okay. That should be it. Our next meeting then will be Monday, February 3rd, here in the boardroom at 6 p.m. Study session. 6 p.m. It says 6 p.m. 5. Oh, okay, 5 PM, okay. I didn't think we had a special one. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.